I don't like winter, and I especially dislike the feeling of being stuck because of the weather. As if everything I carefully planned suddenly becomes meaningless in the face of an unexpected snowstorm. That afternoon, Boston's airport was nearly frozen shut. Flights were cancelled en masse and every hotel nearby was fully booked. I had just wrapped up a long presentation at a conference, suitcase in tow, hands freezing and no option left but to find the nearest Airbnb to take shelter. That's when Liam texted, "I'm stuck at the airport, too. No cabs. Where are you staying?" He's my older sister's son, 25, currently in grad school here. I'd always been closer to him than to my other nieces and nephews. His mother was frequently away on business and I was always fun Aunt Diane during the family holidays. "Found a place," I replied. "It has a spare sofa. If you need, come over." 10 minutes later, Liam showed up at the door, coat dusted in snow, cheeks flushed pink from the cold wind. I opened the door and let him in. The apartment was small but warm, with a single bedroom and a long sofa. The kitchen was compact but tidy. Outside, the world was still a blur of white. The wind howled and the cold found its way through every corner of the glass windows. "You sure I'm not imposing?" "No." I smiled softly. "It's actually nice, less lonely this way." He smiled and nodded. We didn't talk much. After that, I made some noodles. Liam brewed tea. 2 people, 2 warm ceramic mugs in hand, sat in silence, looking out through a fogged-up window. I didn't think anything of it at the time, only that there was something strangely different about being near him. Someone who used to run around my feet as a little boy, now taller than me by half. A head voice, deep gaze, steady, and sometimes silent in a way that made me look inward. That night, as I lay on the small bed in the room and Liam lay on the sofa outside, I still didn't know that this snowstorm wouldn't just delay our flights. It would also slow down the distance between 2 people who had only ever called each other by a familiar title. Snow fell through the night. The next morning, the entire city seemed to be wrapped in a soft white blanket, so thick that even the sounds outside felt distant. I woke early, brewed some coffee, and sat by the window. Liam was still asleep, curled slightly on the sofa, one arm resting loose, his hair tousled in a way that made him look like the little boy who used to doze off on my shoulder after weekend movies. When he woke up, we had a simple breakfast, bread, boiled eggs, and a second cup of coffee. At first, the conversation was typical. "How's your thesis coming along? Is work still as busy for you as always? Don't you get tired from all that traveling?" I answered with polite, safe responses, like 2 adults who only see each other during the holidays. But then something shifted when I shared that I'd been having trouble sleeping lately. Liam didn't respond right away. He looked at me and asked slowly, "Do you ever feel like you're living a full, proper life, but it doesn't feel real?" I looked up. That wasn't the question of a curious nephew. It was the question of someone who had wrestled with himself. I answered softly and honestly, "I think I've gotten used to living like I don't need anything more. But some days I realize I've forgotten what it feels like to be needed beyond work." Liam nodded. "Me too. I'm not hungry, But I still feel empty. We looked at each other. No avoidance. No rush to change the topic. And in that moment, I realized some conversations don't come from roles or obligations. They happen when two people pause long enough to truly see each other. That entire afternoon, we talked about the things we rarely say aloud. About the exhaustion of always having to be right. About the dreams we once carried in our youth, only to leave behind somewhere between deadlines and expectations. About the feeling of no longer being seen even while existing fully every single day. And when I turned to look at Liam, I no longer saw my sister's son. I saw a man carrying a kind of loneliness that felt far closer to mine than I had ever dared to admit. That night, the snow still hadn't stopped. The city was draped in white, and the light from the window cast soft, pale shapes onto the ceiling. I sat in the corner of the small kitchen holding a cup of chamomile tea, the glow from a desk lamp pooling gently over my face in a warm golden halo. Liam came out of the shower, his hair still damp, wearing a grey hoodie with the hood up. His footsteps were quiet, as if afraid of breaking the fragile stillness that had settled between us. "You're still up?" he asked. I shook my head and smiled. Tea helps with sleep, or at least makes it easier to sit with being awake. Liam sat down across from me. He didn't turn on any more lights, just the one between us, quietly glowing. We talked about small things, his classes, some ridiculous news from the week, a story about a neighbor's cat he once secretly kept in his dorm. But then a silence came, soft and unforced, as if we both realized we didn't need to keep talking. Liam looked at me, and this time his gaze wasn't that of a nephew chatting with his aunt. It was deeper. It lingered longer, and it didn't try to hide anything. I felt it being seen. Not for my age, not for my title, but as a woman still living, still feeling, still longing to be seen for who she really is. My heart beat faster, not with panic, but with surprise. I set the teacup down on the table. Liam kept looking, unblinking. "I'm sorry," he said softly, directly. "I shouldn't have looked at you that way." I shook my head. "It's okay. I'm just not used to it." He tilted his head slightly, half smiling, half somber. "I never thought I'd see you this way. But tonight, I don't want to pretend I don't." I didn't respond, just lowered my eyes to the teacup, my fingers gently circling the handle to keep them from trembling. But deep down, I knew what was unfolding now no longer belonged within old boundaries. Neither of us said anything more, but from that moment on, I understood. Something in the way we looked at each other had changed. And if there had ever been a line between us, it was now barely holding. The next evening, the snow began to slow. The city was still frozen in place, but outside the window, the first reflections of light shimmered on the wet streets. Inside the apartment, the wind had stopped. Only quiet breathing remained, and the soft glow of the lamp wrapped the room in something like a blanket of silence. I lay on the sofa, thin blanket over me, eyes open to the ceiling. Not because I couldn't sleep, but because something unnamed inside me was drawing close, and I could feel it. The bedroom door creaked open. Liam stepped out, holding a folded blanket. "Are you cold?" he asked, his voice low but sure. I nodded. Maybe the tea was too weak. He sat beside me, spreading the blanket across my legs. He didn't speak, didn't move to leave. We stayed like that for a while. The quiet stretching between us, wide, warm, and real. I turned toward him. He looked at me, too. This time, he didn't look away. Didn't pull back. That gaze, there was nothing nephew left in it. No hesitation, no awkwardness, just a young man looking at a woman he knew he shouldn't love but couldn't unsee. I raised my hand, gently brushed his cheek. He didn't react at first, but when I started to pull away, he caught my hand, holding it in both of his as if letting go would make this moment vanish forever. I know I shouldn't, he said softly. And I whispered steady, but no longer certain. Neither should I. But that doesn't make this feeling any less real. Then he leaned in and kissed me. Not rushed, not desperate, a kiss that was soft, deliberate, completely aware of what it was. No hiding, no pretending it meant something else. I kissed him back. No hesitation, no defense. We held each other in the borrowed warmth of a brutal winter. My body softened in his arms. My breath slowed. No logic, no roles, no names. Only a woman who hadn't been seen in far too long. Finally being touched and seen. No one said, "I love you." No one made promises. There were only touches. Real deep and just enough as if not touching now would mean carrying this unfinished dream forever. I woke as the first light of day filtered through the thin curtain. The scent of coffee drifted from the kitchen. The snow had stopped. The sky was a pale grey, quiet. Enough that I could hear the wood stretching beneath the floorboards. I sat up, wrapped my scarf around me. The apartment looked exactly the same, but the air inside it didn't. Liam stood at the kitchen counter, his back to me, pouring coffee into 2 white porcelain mugs. He wore a light grey sweater. His hair was tasseled, his footsteps slower, more grounded than usual. When he turned and saw me, he didn't speak. He just smiled. And that smile wasn't like any smile I'd seen from him before. He handed me the mug. His fingers brushed mine. Brief, unforced, but intentional. I took it. Our eyes met, no words. Just a long gaze. Enough for both of us to know. Last night wasn't a mistake, and this morning couldn't return to what it used to be. We had a light breakfast, toasted bread, a few slices of apple and coffee that had gone a little cold. He told me about considering a shift in his studies. Nothing certain, but for the first time, I heard him speak with a kind of quiet confidence. I didn't ask about the night before. There was no need. It lingered in our eyes, in the closeness between us, close enough that silence was enough to hear each other's heartbeat. As I rinsed the mugs, Liam stood behind me. He didn't speak, just placed his hand on my back for a moment. Not like a nephew would, but like a man. Still lingering, not quite ready to leave. And in that moment, I placed my hand over his slowly, intentionally, and with quiet clarity. I wasn't afraid of what was forming. What I feared was that if I didn't acknowledge it, I'd spend the rest of my life like someone blind who had grown used to the dark. That afternoon, the flights resumed. The city slowly came back to life beneath a thick blanket of snow. Liam and I left the little apartment together, suitcases rolling behind us, heavy coats, gloves, everything falling neatly back into place, except our hearts. At the airport, we hugged at the security gate. Neither of us said much, but that embrace firmer longer carried a truth we didn't dare name. A light touch on my back before he let go. One last glance through the glass that I knew would follow me for a very long time. Not because it was wrong, but because it arrived at the exact moment I thought I had grown numb to feeling anything at all. I returned to the office, to meetings, to a full inbox, to conversations where everything is always measured, adjusted, made to fit. But at night when I made a cup of tea, just like I did the evening the snow fell, my heart would soften again. Not from regret, but from knowing that once I was truly seen, not through titles, not through age, but through the eyes of someone who had been lonely, reaching for something real. Some emotions don't need to be explained, because they are in themselves the answer. When a grown woman who has spent years living in roles in duty in what's proper reaches a connection that makes her feel alive, it is no longer about right or wrong. It is about recognition of loneliness, of longing, and of what is worthy of being called real. If you've ever experienced a connection that crossed conventional lines, one that couldn't be defined, but made you feel truly alive, share it. Even if it's just a single dot, because someone out there might be holding the same silence. And if stories like this resonate with you, please like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell to keep walking alongside us. Because here, we're not chasing perfection. We're searching for what's real, and we dare to name it, if only once.